What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Jaws at 50. Jaws at 50 years old. I know that's hard to believe that this film is 50 years old. Probably older than many of you who are now into the horror genre. Probably some of you could be older than the film, or you could be right there in the middle where the film had probably just been out for roughly 10 years or so by the time, or less, when this film was already out and the sequels are already there. But regardless, Jaws at 50. And we're getting, as you see from the headline here, the definitive Inside Story swimming to Hulu and Disney Plus this summer. So we have a news update on this, and it's accompanied by a trailer. So as we always do, we're going to jump into the article details, then we're going to take a look over at this trailer. So we have right here, as you can see, I'd imagine this is going to be taken from the trailer itself or in the larger behind the scenes documentary. But we have a still here from the film, and as you can see, the shark here sitting above the water, probably on some sort of stand before they put it into the water. We obviously have the boat here where they did some filming on. Looks like they're in between takes because we see someone here with a bullhorn probably directing things as such. So let's move into the article details here. Steven Spielberg's blockbuster classic Jaws is celebrating its milestone 50th anniversary with all kinds of special events this year, including a theatrical re-release and various festivities at Martha's Vineyard, which played the role of the fictional Amity Island in the film. We're also getting a brand new documentary this summer with Jaws at 50, the definitive Inside Story, set to premiere on National Geographic on July 10th, followed by Hulu and Disney Plus on July 11th. The doc's tagline says it all: the movie you know, the story you don't. Nat Geo previews Jaws at 50, the definitive story is the authorized documentary celebrating the film that redefined Hollywood 50 years after its premiere. Alongside Steven Spielberg, Jaws at 50 charts the extraordinary journey from Peter Benchley's best-selling novel to one of the most iconic films ever made. I will say, yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Jaws is one of those films that I don't think, when you think about the Mount Rushmore of horror, including myself, and I've made this statement before, you think Leatherface, you think Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, Chucky. Most recently, people have even thrown in there Ghostface, right? We never think about Jaws. I think the reason why you don't think about Jaws is he's not a human being. It's a shark, right? So many people don't think about the Mount Rushmore putting a shark on it. But just like the original Leatherface film, the Halloween film, the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, those were iconic films, not just for their franchises, but for the horror genre. And I think Jaws is equally just as iconic, not just for cinema, but for the horror space as well. Especially since it seems like we have Dangerous Animals. That's we've done trailer reviews on. We've talked about as well with Jaya Courtney. That's it's a fisherman using sharks to I think we're seeing we've talked about seeing a resurgence of body horror after The Substance got released, and I've always said this: The Substance didn't invent body horror. I think it just put it right back on the map as something to look at and to take serious. I think we're starting to see more shark films, more animal type horror films coming about, and I think they're trying to say, hey, let's go back to this and make it's a bit more serious, right? Because Jaws, again, it's just one of those iconic films, not just for cinema, but for the horror space. And I think it needs to be in that conversation of a Mount Rushmore type situation, because we can't just ignore the fact that what it's done, not just at the time it was released, but even over the 50 years, right? So let's move on. Featuring rare archival footage and interviews with acclaimed Hollywood directors, top shark scientists, and conversationalists, the documentary uncovers the behind-the-scenes chaos and how the film launched the summer blockbuster, inspired a new wave of filmmakers, and paved the way for shark conversation that continues today. The documentary will feature insights from Spielberg alongside J.J. Abrams, James Cameron, so on and so forth. We're not reading everybody's name. Interesting to note, this same 90-minute documentary will also be included with the new 50th anniversary 4K Steelbook release of Jaws, which will be swimming our way on June 17th, thanks to Screen Rant for debuting the trailer this morning. So we have the trailer here. We have a poster here of our advertisement. Pretty decent looking. As you guys know, I don't like all the text. Get rid of all that stuff at the bottom. Just give me Jaws at 50, and that's all I need. Even the text at the top, don't need it. I think it's just fine. Jaws at 50. Maybe even have the definitive inside story, but remove all this other stuff off of it. It's nonsense. I will say, I think Jaws is also one of those films that got a lot of people not wanting to go into the ocean. Scared a lot of people. And that's not to say we shouldn't take it serious that sharks do come close to shore. And there's been, and even in real life, we've seen various news reports of people getting attacked by sharks. But I think for a long time after people saw Jaws, they had set their mind at that point. Yeah, I'm definitely not going into the water. And I think there's probably some people who still feel that way after seeing Jaws, that they probably still won't go into the water. So, all right, let's jump over to the trailer for the definitive inside story of Jaws at 50.
To me, making Jaws was a life-altering experience.
50 years, we're still talking about Jaws.
It was the first blockbuster.
It's this mystical connection between hero and monster.
This started me thinking about a career in movies.
Is there anything that you've never said about Jaws?
Let's find out. We were on the real ocean, and we were way out of our element for 5 months. And we all began going off the deep end, literally.
Okay, attack!
The film was 100 days behind schedule, and 80% of the time the shark didn't work.
There was a strong undercurrent that the studio would close us down.
I was terrified I was going to be fired, but I never once felt like I wanted to quit. And when the film wrapped, I had a full-blown panic attack. But the success was fantastic.
It was sort of life-changing.
It's the film I've seen the most.
It wasn't just a movie, it was a pop culture phenomenon like that.
It supercharged the language of cinema.
There have been movies made since using CG sharks that aren't nearly as good.
The film that I thought would end my career is the film that began it. Boom, 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 boom.
That's crazy to believe that they were 100 days behind schedule. Usually in today's Hollywood, you're 100 days behind schedule. You don't have to worry about being shut down. More than likely, you're going to get shut down. And then they mentioned 80% of the time the shark didn't work. So you got to think 80% of the time the main focus of your film isn't working. You're 100 days behind schedule. You're dealing with the studio shutting you down. Could be at any point because of the undercurrent that they were talking about. So you don't know when they're going to come in and say, nope, it's not safe enough. You can't film today. Again, in today's Hollywood, I don't think it would have made it that far. I think they would say, yeah, we're taking the loss, shut it down. It's not worth it, and we'll CGI it. And just like it was said there, I think James Cameron said it. Like today, people try to do CGI with when it comes to sharks, and it doesn't look nearly as great as Jaws did. And I would agree, but I think that comment could be said though for just as we talk about practical effects, right? I think practical effects is becoming a lost art, so to speak. Some films still very much use them, and I'm glad that they do, because I do think it does make things look better using practical effects and then using CGI as a way to touch things up a little bit, but you're not relying on the CGI to bring to life whatever it is you're bringing to life, right? So I think, of course, practical effects is always going to look better than CGI, because there's been times where CGI has been used and it looks absolutely horrible, where it is clear as day that is CGI, and the right amount of time and care wasn't put into it to make it look as realistic as possible, where someone would have to question, is that CGI? Is that practical effects? Because there are some where it just looks absolutely atrocious. So, yeah, again, something like this happens today, the movie gets shut down. I don't imagine they would pursue anything further with such a large number of problems happening on set. So I am glad to see, obviously it worked out. They were obviously able to push through with the original film. And we do know there was subsequent sequels to this, but even the subsequent sequels are never going to match, and in my opinion, never match the same impact as the first film. And there are some franchises where the sequel does surpass the original film or does feel like it's a better film overall. For me, the Jaws franchise was never that. I thought that the sequels were entertaining, but they never had the same level, in my opinion, cultural impact as the original film did. And as we saw, I mean, if any of you are old enough to remember, I am old enough to remember, like when we saw at the beginning of that trailer, movie lines where you stood outside and you lined up at the ticket counter, or you would buy your ticket and then you'd wait at the door to enter in order to go in, get your ticket ripped. Yes, you actually had to have your ticket ripped, not your phone scanned. And then once you had your ticket ripped, it would be like a mad dash to the theater to get your seat. There wasn't assigned seating. It was a first come, first serve, and then you had to leave someone there to watch your seats while you go get popcorn or whatever. Nowadays, it's scan your phone, you have an assigned seat, and you don't have to worry about those things. You don't have to worry about waiting in lines outside. I very much remember that. I very much remember having to wait outside in lines, especially on an opening weekend for a big film. You could be there 2 or 3 hours, and I remember when like the Star Wars films come out, or Lord of the Rings. I mean, you would be in line not just 2 or 3 hours. I mean, people were waiting in line for days in order to get a first viewing and get a great seat where you weren't in the very front row, looking up and looking far left and far right to watch a movie. So. Very much true to how movies were, I think, for the longest time, up until probably the last 5 to 8 years, when they got the idea of, hey, let's do assigned seating where people don't have to wait outside in all types of weather, depending upon where you live. So I'm interested in seeing this one. I'll probably do a spoiler review on this. Yes, it's a documentary, but I love documentaries, especially when it comes to cinema. I love documentaries in general, but we'll be checking this one out. We'll probably do a spoiler review, just give a quick update on our takes on it. So drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about Jaws turning 50. Does it age you as it ages me? Do you like documentaries, especially when it comes to cinema or horror cinema? Let us know in the comment section. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Later.